Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In any ServiceNow interview, your project explanation is much more powerful than the list of certification you have. And I have seen that many good candidates with good knowledge are getting rejected because they are not able to explain their project in a very nutshell, in a very good way, what they have done in that project in just 2 or 3 minutes. So it's a kind of, process which you have to develop to explain your project and what the interviewer is looking for with that perspective. In an interview, the interviewers are using your project story to check three things basically. Number one, do you really understand what you did? Number two, can you explain it simply in a simple words? And number three, did your work actually create any business value or not? Or it's just a table and script which you have written? So many people are doing this mistake. They are explaining hell lot of things. Okay, 4 to 5 or 10 minutes of projects, but in that they are throwing garbage. They are not talking about what they have done. They are not talking about creating value. They are just talking that we have created client script, we have created this, and that. Okay, no relation with anything at all. And when in the middle, the interviewer asks, what was your contribution? They just freeze or they bluff anything like that. So to fix this, I want you to use a very simple structure that top architects and hiring managers are silently expecting. That is the context, your contribution and the output and the result. Okay, the outcome. So let's start with number one, that is the context or your project. So in 30 to 40 seconds, explain who the customer or department was, what problems they were struggling with, and what ServiceNow product or module you were working on there. For example, you might say that this project was for an IT service company, still using email and Excel for incident and change. Okay. So our goal was to implement core ITSM on ServiceNow, that is incident, problem, and change, and bring everything into one platform. So just notice what I have done here. I did not start with my job title or long requirement workshop. I started with the proper pain, the broken process, and the module we used to fix that problem. Number two, that is the second part is important because now here you have to shift the focus from your team to yourself. You have to tell what was your contribution, what actually you tried there, what actually you worked on there, and that brings the value. Okay, so you have to focus the spotlight on yourself here. For example, in this case, you might say, I configured the incident form and UI policies, created business rule and notifications, build a flow designer flow for access request, and help fix UAT issues around SLAs and email alerts. So now you see, you are properly explaining what exactly things you have done. You are not just adding various keywords here. You are defining the problem. You are defining what actually your responsibility was in that project. So this is what is expected in this particular session. Now come to step number three, that is the outcome. So here the interviewer is not interested in listening that it went live. They are interested in understanding what actually changed there. Okay, what value your proper solution has bring there. Even though you have not done significant part in that, but you understand the complete process. You know what is the value making here. Okay, so that change they are interested in, such as fast resolution, automation, less email, visibility, or saving dollars, saving hours, all these things, kind of the outcomes an interviewer is looking for. So keeping our same example, you can add simple steps and concrete results like more requests shifted from email to catalog. P1 and P2 resolutions times are improved now. Managers got dashboards and overall support process become more predictable and auditable. Okay, so your entire story becomes a clean flow here. And you have wonderfully explained they had this problem. I did these specific things on ServiceNow, and this is the business results they saw after go live. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the real language for a consultant. Okay, and this is what you have to try for your projects. So now let me go in detail of one of the important question here. Very important, like what is your contribution? This is not a casual question, but this is the question on which the interviewer decide whether you are just a passenger or you are really at the driving seat. Okay, so when you hear such type of questions, you immediately switch from V to I and give 3 or 4 very specific contributions. each tied to something real in the system. So from our last example, you can say I designed incident form and UI policies. I built flow designer flow for laptop request. I wrote inbound email action to convert mails into incidents. And I have fixed UAT defects related to SLA and notification. So your this response, your this style of responding gives the interviewer zero doubt that you actually touch the platform, right? Because here you are naming forms, flows, rules, and activities that only someone hands-on would know. That's why we can say this is a credible response. In case if your role was more support than implementation, you still have a strong story here. Okay, you have to just frame it correctly. Support is not just ticketing. Support is keeping the platform alive when everything is on fire, right? So in that case, you can say something like, I worked on L2 and L3 supports, handled P1 and P2 incidents, used logs and background scripts for root cause analysis, optimized the slow business rule and created small UI policies or script to stop reoccurring issues. Okay. So this is the kind of response people are expecting from you. There is one more thing which you have to focus. Nowadays, ServiceNow is expecting out-of-box things, right? They are not doing much customizations. So in such cases, what should people say? So ladies and gentlemen, if your project was mostly out-of-box, it is not a weakness, right? Many real customers and ServiceNow own guidance prefer saying close to out-of-box to reduce upgrade pain and technical depth. So in this case, you have to emphasize on configuration and the best practices that you have used while configuring that out-of-box things, such as activating plugins, setting up SLAs, assignment rule, reports, flow designer, deliberately avoiding heavy customization unless it was truly needed. One thing also I want to share here that interviewers are also looking how you handle the deep follow-up questions. They stick to one detail and ask you more about that one by one, okay, back and forth. So when that happens, you do not need to panic and don't bluff, okay? First, restate the context in one sentence, then explain the high level approach, and finally go into only as much technical detail as you truly understand. And in that questions, if you get a part where that part is handled by some other team, other members, okay, you can specifically tell that, okay, this part is handled by some other team. Okay, I was just using it and I was using it for doing this. You need not to do everything by yourself. And when you say I have done everything, then obviously it's a bluff. So keep these things in mind, be truthful, but you have to make sure whatever you are telling is polished properly. So ladies and gentlemen, this is all about I want to discuss in this video. Okay, the whole concept I have explained you. You have to make sure your projects is defined in such a way like context, your action, and then the finally outcome. Okay. So in next video in this series, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 examples with different people, starting from fresher, then 2 to 3 years of experience, and pick up few projects, and then we discuss what is a bad and what is a good project, explanation. Thank you so much. Subscribe and share.